Hi, folks. Thanks for joining me and Dog. I wanted to talk to you today about a student who has failed multiple semesters. This student, age 22, has failed 6 semesters consecutively over 3 different schools. This person is clearly smart and capable and really wants to be independent and successful and efficient. They're studying psychology, and I think that eventually they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. But right now, they're having a very, very difficult time. And they, I think, have kind of a openness of heart and vulnerability, which is rare. And I think that the combination of the person's intellect and openness are going to make them an extremely effective clinician. Their goal is to work with some of the most challenging populations in psychology or uh, psychiatry. So let's get right into what the student is experiencing. So they have the mental will, the mental desire to make it to class and to do their assignments on time and to ace the tests and all that. But when it comes time to leave the apartment and go to class or to sit down and start studying for the exam or doing the assignment or whatever, they they experience a feeling of, as they put it, being overwhelmed. We all have felt overwhelmed in our work, in our studies, our family life, etc. Most of us can relate to that feeling, but what we may not be conscious of is that the feeling of overwhelm for most of us is a combination of multiple feelings. Overwhelm, and at the center of those, or at the core of those feelings, is fear. There may be a fear of losing one's basic needs, like for example, losing one's income or livelihood, one's home. But for this individual and for many of us, the fear that they have is the fear of rejection or the fear of not being loved, of not being good enough, the fear of not being loved by their parents. In our first session, I broke out the tool of self-awareness, which is always the first thing that I like to explore with a student, to find out how self-aware they are and also to help them build self-awareness. If you're in a situation where your feelings are so overwhelming that you cannot take the actions that you really desire to take, chances are pretty good that you're not fully aware of everything that you're feeling. Oftentimes, to me at least, overwhelm comes with a sense of confusion. Yeah, I can feel that there's fear in there. Yeah, I can feel there's, what else? Anxiety, maybe some uh, mental franticness as my mind starts to create scenarios that may be a threat to me or may not be a threat to me. But this is what human beings do. This is what the human mind does. It looks for danger. It perceives danger even when there may not be any. And when there is a threat, like the threat of not being loved by the parents or meeting with judgment or disapproval by the parents, in situations like that, the brain fails to recognize the difference between the threat of being rejected by one's family and a car that's about to hit you, or something that may be poisonous or too hot to touch. Fear, I don't want to say that it's all the same to the brain, but without self awareness to filter out those feelings and the sources of those feelings, confusion often reigns. And in a situation like that, where an individual feels afraid, overwhelmed, and confused, home is the safest place to be, right? Quiet is the safest place to be. And maybe some of those dopamine releasing activities that we do are the safest things to do at the time. So exploring this person's self-awareness, I found that they had a very high degree of self-awareness. And this is often the case where people know the way that they feel, They know that they're familiar with their thoughts, their inner dialogues, but they can't quite make themselves flip the switch to make the choice that they really want to make in order to be successful or in order to get their systems running or get their goals met. When someone says something like, I know what I should do or what I need to do, I just can't manage to do it, I know that there is a blockage between the thought, the intention, and the feelings that someone is really having. I know that the feelings are blocking the person's ability to take action. This is not as simple as feel the fear and do it anyway, just pull the trigger, just grind. It's definitely not the same. This is I'll say, brain. This is a brain which is incapable of sending the the motor signals to get up and move in the presence of fear or overwhelm. A lot of people have this experience, and yes, there are many in our society who will judge us for that and who will exclude us for that. But the healthiest and the most helpful thing is to have those feelings validated and to learn or to be taught self-awareness. So this is where I started, by validating the students' feelings and by exploring their self-awareness. We had a moment where they realized that they have security around them in the form of, for example, a friend or a sibling or a parent who loves them and will be for them and listen to them. However, they were not consciously aware of that secure base. So, seeking to make the most of the resources that they had around them at the time, or that they have around them in place already, my first step was to teach a technique called toggling. This is something that I learned by listening to Josh Corda from Dharma Punks NYC, who I highly recommend as a resource. In what Josh Corda calls toggling, after grounding yourself and calling to mind the feeling or image of a stressful situation, for example, trying to make it to class or do the schoolwork or what have you, um, one also calls to mind the image of someone or something or some place which is accepting and safe and comforting. So that could be a parent or a loved one. It might be your room, your bedroom, or your home. It could be your favorite, vacation spot, or it can be a deity or a pet, or it could be an image of yourself. I particularly like the image of myself as a secure base. And then you spend the time in the meditation going back and forth, experience between the two, uh, the two visions, between the two. What do I call those? Between those two stimuli. So you spend some time. I'm saying you. I had them spend some time focusing on the schoolwork and the desire to get to school and the anxiety that comes with that, the overwhelm that starts to come with that. And then once they were feeling those difficult emotions, I had them switch their concentration to the image of the loved one who brought them comfort and safety. And then once they felt self-regulated or down-regulated enough, I would ask them to switch back to the image which provoked the anxiety and the overwhelm. Now, I want to add that if you're doing this on your own, if it's your first time, or if you've done this less than 3 or 4 times, you may want to engage with the anxiety provoking stimulus or the anxiety provoking image lightly, so that you don't get overwhelmed, so that you don't get triggered, so that you don't get too anxious or too fearful, and not be able to calm yourself down, not be able to allow your body to regulate. So but being in the session with this person and having ample space and time to work with them in case they got to that point, I felt fine leading them through the process and engaging with the full feeling of being overwhelmed, and they felt fine about that too. They did go to class and do their assignments the week that we had the session. After the session, I didn't bother to ask them what their impression was, if they felt that they were able to accomplish more because of the toggling work, because of the meditation work. But I'm pretty confident that that had something to do with it. Usually, when people have some kind of support and they start to feel more safe in any context, usually they start to become more grounded and therefore more creative and productive. So we established that there is overwhelm and that there is fear, and acknowledging those things and bringing one's self awareness, practicing one's self awareness, bringing one's self awareness to those feelings is often a new practice for those who I coach who are either school refusers or who have failed chronically in school. So once we established a pretty good self awareness practice, we then moved on to exploring the feelings more deeply. This was the second session. So the second session, this was the second session. So in the second session, I brought up some issues that I found between this person and their parents through communicating with the parents. In texting with the parents, what I found was that they were not willing to explore the emotional aspects or the spiritual aspects, spiritual being a combination of everything that we are: emotions, thoughts, our physical body, our energy, our memories, all of it together makes up the spirit. For those of you who believe in this kind of thing, the spirit is also our link to the collective. The energy that we put out binds us or links us through the energy that others put out to those around us. I hope I'm being clear about that. It's not easy to define spirit, and my definitions are, I would say, subjective and probably pretty vanilla. Uh, anyway, they work for me and my clients. So in the second session, we began to explore the nature of the overwhelm and the nature of the fear. What kinds of fears, what kinds of overwhelm, what kinds of feelings are below the surface? What's in that whole overwhelming package, if you will? What we found was there's a lot under the surface that they weren't contacting consciously. Yeah, maybe they kind of sort of knew or kind of sort of could feel that these things were there, but to watch them contact these feelings, become aware of these feelings honestly, and bring them out and name them, to use their voice to name them, was very powerful. Anytime you take a feeling which comes from deep inside you, the feelings reside in your body. They can be in the chest or the heart area, the diaphragm, the belly, the pelvis. They can be anywhere in the body. For most of us, we store those feelings somewhere around the areas of the organs, in the pelvis, torso, chest, etc. But I have seen and know many people who have symptoms that show up in specific areas, like headaches or pain in specific joints or limbs, and these do happen. But what I found was that once they started to name the feelings, I could tell that there was a reduction in the potency, like the charge or the edge on those feelings had started to come off or started to smooth out a little bit. So, for example, they said that what they were really afraid of is that their parents would not approve of their performance, and that eventually they would lose their parents' love, or their parents would withdraw their love. Now, I don't know what the dynamic is between this person and their parents. However, I did speak with the parents and I can tell you that they're not receptive to exploring the emotional or the spiritual aspect that this person is going through. And that is, I think, akin to having a leak in a boat and just letting it leak, just not doing anything to plug the hole. You got to plug the hole in order to get the boat to be able to sail or move or whatever. Uh, and this was like par for the course for this individual's self-care or lack of self-care, not self-care, support network, or lack of support network around them. So you have an individual with overwhelming feelings, tremendous fear, fear of their primary source of security and love disappearing or going away or whatever, or being unavailable. And then you have parents who are in the room with all these feelings coming from the person, but don't acknowledge it, don't want to talk about it, and don't want to pursue any kind of therapeutic action specific to that if they have to be involved. They just want to pay for the tutoring and hope that their child ends up happy, and that's that. Well, that presents a challenge that this person is going to have to navigate on their journey, one in which they are aware of feelings and causes of these feelings, but the person on the other end doesn't want to engage and have the conversation or feel deeply into their own feelings around the issues. So that's a whole skill set that's going to have to be developed. And again, self-awareness is step one, stone square number one in the foundation, has to be there in order for people to navigate these relationships, which are, sticky. So we found a fear of the withdrawal or loss of love. We also found, or they also discovered, kind of a physical sensation which was pretty severe. And by the way, they were not aware of these physical sensations before I asked them to explore their sensations and explore their body and explore their experience. One of the most powerful things that they were experiencing was a feeling of nausea. Uh, Again, they weren't very aware that the nausea was happening, but we all have had nausea, and I think we all can agree that when we do feel nauseous, home is the only place we're going. We're not going to class or outside or anything like that until we start to feel better. There also was a feeling of vibration in, I think it was, well, somewhere in the body, chest or abdomen, something like that. And this vibration it's not a good kind of vibration. We do sometimes feel vibrations when we are contacting our spirit, contacting our feelings. We can get a tingly sensation in the limbs or around the face or the mouth or other places. At least that's where it happens for me, and that I'm aware of. It happens for most people. But there are many kinds of vibrations, and the feeling of fear, the feeling of overwhelm, is a different kind of vibration than the feeling of the energy moving through our body. The energy moving through our body actually feels like uh, like a tingling or a buzzing that moves. It goes from, the chest into the arms, or the forearms into the hands and back, etc. It also changes pretty profoundly with things like breathing and visual imagery. Something like fear or overwhelm doesn't move. In fact, its nature is much more stuck. No matter how much you breathe, no matter how much you visualize um, a secure base or a person who provides safety for you, that feeling of overwhelm can be stuck there until you bring enough self-awareness and vulnerability to that feeling to allow it to process and dissipate. The self-awareness looks like, I'm having a feeling of being overwhelmed. It feels like a buzzing or a tingling in my chest or abdomen. I'm going to see how much is there. Okay, overwhelm. Okay, fear. Come on strongly. Come on, show me everything that you have. How much of you is there? How much fear am I carrying? Where is it? Spirit, show me what it is that I need to know, what it is that I need in order to heal and move past this. Being open like that. And then once the feelings are there and the threat is present and the tears begin, saying, yes, this is there, this is present, I'm feeling all of this. It's okay for me to let it out, through my tears, to let it out through my voice, to let it out through movement. Let's get this block moving and process it and see what happens. That's a completely different, very intentional, very kind of almost measured approach to the feeling of overwhelm and anxiety that is stuck inside the body. Compare that to the feeling of energy moving. Let's take a positive example. When you're dating someone new, or you're starting to fall in love, uh, or you see your favorite dessert. All those are pretty similar to me at my age. That feeling is more like exhilaration and anticipation. And the feeling, I can feel it now. The feeling is like waves of tingling moving through my arms into my hands and a little bit in my neck and face and head. I don't feel that anything is stuck, lodged, not going to be able to move. And I certainly don't feel like those feelings are unresponsive when I imagine getting closer to my loved one or closer to the chocolate. I definitely feel my body responding to that, right? Whereas just imagining something that's fearful and overwhelming feels like that feeling is going to stay at its current intensity until it goes away. It tells me what's going to happen. It tells me that it's done for now and I'm off the hook for the time being. Not the same. So after the second session, I was very confident that this person is going to be able to start taking care of themselves more fully. That's what self-awareness does. I mean, they want to process and move on, and self-awareness is that first step. I also gave them the second step of allowing. Allowing is sometimes you have to be willing to be a rebel in order to allow. Everyone around them is telling them they have to, um, start acting like an adult. This is big person time, and just do it. I mean, there's lots of slogans and phrases, and feel the fear and do it anyway. There's titles of books. This is woven into our cultural consciousness that, yeah, we can have feelings and we can be in our feelings, but we still need to put one foot in front of the other and keep moving, even though we're feeling that way. Well, like I said in the beginning, it's not always possible. And even if it is, a lot of people don't feel like doing it, don't want to do it, feel uncomfortable enough that they can find something safer for the time being. We call that procrastination. But after the second session, I was confident that with their newfound tool of self-awareness, that they were going to be much better off than before. I want to add one more thing before before I wrap up, which is that this person, a psychology major, does not have a therapist right now. I didn't ask them how long since your last therapy appointment or how long since your last run of consecutive or consistent appointments, but I think it's probably been a while. So that's always surprising to me. Say what you will about anxiety or therapy, etc., but some support is usually preferable to no support. Now, I've had some pretty goddamn bad therapists, so I won't say that that rule applies all the time. Sometimes nothing is better than something, but our job as adults who are learning to take care of ourselves is to go through the process of search and discovery. I got to look for and discover the person that I'm really a good fit with, the person who really is going to support me and give me the tools, challenging though they may be at times, that are going to help me grow into becoming a independent and different person. All right, that's it for now. I've rambled on plenty enough. I'm not going to edit this video, so it's probably going to be pretty rough. The reason I'm not editing it is because I just got to get real about the amount of time that I have compared to the amount of productivity that I'm achieving. So thank you for joining me. Please reach out to me if you're not getting your systems in place, you're not getting your goals, you're not getting your grades or your degree in the works that you want them to be. If you or someone you care about is refusing to go to school or is failing chronically, I dare say that I am an excellent person to work with. You can find me online at compassionatelearning.net or through Instagram. You can DM me there. I am at Kim Sue Tutor on Instagram. Thanks very much for your time. I hope that this helped someone. I'll see you next time. I love you all.